Welcome back to the video lecture series for Introduction to the Art of Programming using Scala. In this video we will talk about another feature of strings, something called string interpolation. This was added in Scala 2.10 and we held off on it because you really can't discuss it properly until after we had introduced variables. So we saw previously how we could do something like we have a variable called age, and we could build a string you are, I put age, and then if I wanted to say this, we could build a string that included the value that was stored in this variable using string concatenation. So we have one string literal that goes from there to there, and then we're concatenating on another value, which basically just gets added to the string, and then it concatenates on the rest of the string. Now, this works just fine. You can do whatever you want with this approach. We really don't have to use the string interpolation. But there are situations where this gets a little unwieldy. And to illustrate that, we're going to introduce three variables, an x, a y, and a z. And I choose these because there are lots of times in my own programming work where I wind up having variables like this, things that are in 3D. And I want to put together a string that shows us these values. And because this is a point, I'm going to put it inside of some parentheses, and so then we have to add the x on, and then I want a comma between the x and the y, and then I want another comma between the y and the z, and let's not forget our plus signs. And I think I typed that all in correctly. We'll hit enter, and sure enough I got it all right. But there were lots of pluses in here, and we have lots of little strings that we're concatenating together. And this is exactly what string interpolation is supposed to help us to avoid. So if I go back up here to the message, the idea of string interpolation is that we are allowed to put values, an actual Scala code, inside of our strings. To make an interpolated string, the simplest form is just we add an s in front. So this says that we want the following string to be interpolated, and then instead of closing off our string and doing concatenation, when I get to my variable, I just precede it with a $sign. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to replace the $age with the value of age. And so we can produce the same string that we had up here, but I'm not concatenating together multiple pieces in this. Okay. What about our second example? Okay, this was the one that really could benefit from string interpolation. Well, I get rid of those concatenates, and I get rid of those concatenates, and that, and that. So I just have $x, $y, $z inside of this string, and you can see this is much shorter than the earlier version. Not only is it shorter, it's easier to read, and it's easier to make sure that we didn't mess something up. Oh, but I left off the s in front, and you can see how important that s is there. Without it, this is exactly the string that it lists as. With the s, it actually converts these to their values. String interpolation allows us to do other things as well. So for example, actually let's go with 3 times 4 equals, well, if I forgot how to do my multiplication, I could actually have Scala do it. Now if I do just 3 times 4 here, this won't work, because one thing is that after your $sign, it takes the first token. And so the token here would end with a 3, but 3 isn't a variable name. We can't make a variable with that name. If I want to actually have a more complex expression after the $sign, I put it inside of curly braces, and you can see that it will evaluate what's inside of there. 3 and 4 happen to also be the values of x and y. And so we can do this as well by putting actual variables in there. What if I want to put something else? So how about the index of the first space in, and I called it, I have the string up here called pointloc, is, and then I actually want to put the integer value for the first space inside of pointloc. Well, we can get that using index of. I need the curly braces here. Let's see if I'll start typing without them. Pointloc dot. The dot would cause a problem. What would happen if I don't do this is that the token would end right there, and then this would be back to regular string. And we'll see that in this case that is particularly problematic. And it would have been particularly problematic because I have another string embedded inside of here. So the index of the first space in that is at index 3. And what this did is it actually evaluated this expression because it's after a $ inside of the curly braces. You can also see here that it was possible to have a string as part of this inner expression because when Scala is looking at this, it knows that it can't close off this string until after we have closed off the curly brace. So because this is nested inside of the curly braces, it knows that it's separate. One last thing, what if I want a $ inside of here? Because if I $x, if I just have a $sign there, well, that's problematic because the $sign is supposed to say there should be something else. If you want a $sign, you put two $signs. Okay. So that's it for string interpolation. It's an easier way for you to potentially build strings in Scala, especially when they contain other variables. So we'll come back and we'll look at sequential execution after this.